Kort, you are the US Bureau Chief for Handelsblatt, which is one of the leading media organization newspapers in Germany. We want to welcome you to this discussion, the regular foreign correspondence talk that we take place every single week with a different foreign journalist who is based here in the US, and we want to say a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Katharina, the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents represents and serves the foreign correspondence community here in the US. You have been a foreign correspondent for many years here in the US, in Italy. A lot of time of your career, from what I've seen, you spent in Italy as a foreign correspondent. You also served as the Deputy Vice President and as President of the Foreign Press Association of Italy, if I'm right.
Yep.
And right now you are one of the, I would say, very responsible roles as the head of the US Bureau Chief for Handelsblatt. What responsibility entails from this role for you?
Yeah, I think what our responsibility is now, it's like the most important thing today is to be credible, to be objective, and not to be able to be attacked by so many people who attack the media in general, who think we are fake news. So we should not give them any reason. So I think it's even more important than before. It's always been important, but to do your job well and to give the facts and not just opinion, and hold all people responsible for what they're doing. And on the left, on the right, when we talk about politics, but well, we are business newspapers, so we also cover a lot of companies, finance. So in that case, you always have the lawyers in your back. So we are very used to that. I mean, I personally have had that experience lots of time. You have to be very careful with your stories because you can be sued. And those companies have good lawyers.
That means that once you are ready to take the risk of reporting the truth and not to be compromised, because there are journalists and media in different countries who may have the option of getting some sort of compromise, depending on the media environment and the media landscape of each country, of course. Does this mean that taking the risk of being a journalist, serving this profession with reporting truth, which is sometimes unpleasant, does that mean that you have to be prepared to create enemies?
I guess yes. That comes with the job, right? And I'm not talking about super investigative stories, which I'm sure they are. But to be honest, as a foreign journalist, it's harder that you will get those. It's because, I mean, my colleagues in Germany, of course, one colleague covers one bank or one Wirecard or one big story. You're going to you will have more scoops when you work in your home turf. As a foreign correspondent, but still you can be critical of companies, of developments that are going on. So, but even being critical, you always have to base it on facts. And I think that's the most important thing. You have to be able to prove in the end that you had the facts right.
How easy is
it? I mean, that's how we were able, maybe even in the last, we didn't have, as journalists, we didn't have bad years behind us, because all this fake news discussion actually brought a lot of readers to serious newspapers, because people did realize that there might be difference between just another blog and a serious newspaper, which has, all the implications that people can sue it and they have to be responsible, and they will, if we write the wrong stories, if we don't have the facts right, we will lose readers.
And how easy is it in the current media environment globally, with the proliferation of technology, the social media, the spread of misinformation, false news, that everyone is self-reporting some sort of their truth or some sort of their facts, and the audience to be very confused about what it is verified and what it is not verified? How easy is for a professional journalist who working for either as a freelancer or for a media organization, reliable media organization like yours, how easy it is to do the job, to do the work carefully in this chaotic and in this confusing environment with a lot of information, the pursuit of clicking and trying to make impression, because this online thing put all of the journalists to try to pursue the story as quickly as possible to get clicks, to get attention, and sometimes self-promotion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is important that things have changed. I've been around for a while, so yes, we do have to be faster than in the past. But I think we do have to sometimes also take a breath and do that one step back and explain things and take a look. Is it true? And if somebody else has it 10 minutes before, doesn't matter, in the long run, it doesn't matter. It's more important that you get the facts right. But I do think what you said, like social media also has for us a lot of implications. I mean, we do have to be on social media, right? We do have to serve all this. It's once, when I started, it was mostly you write your article and it's done. No, you have to self-promote it. You have to look to do SEO, you have to do, Twitter and LinkedIn, and we are doing great on LinkedIn. It's been for us, it's been a very, well, being a business newspaper, maybe it's also more articles in that more business field. But yes, we do have to do all that on top. But I think it's normal, and we do a lot of newsletters. And I think it's important for now, when you ask me what can journalists here do, I think it is important to have your own brand. You have to have your own Twitter account and not that of the newspaper. So you can actually carry it if you should go to another employer, or maybe you're freelancers, you have more employers. So yes, we have to be on all those medias, and we need those touch points with the readers. It's like it used to be in the old times. You have the newspaper, your subscription readers, they open the newspaper, see you every day. It doesn't matter if they know Katharina Kort but today I don't hardly read. I get the New York Times on paper only on the weekends, but for the rest, I'm also digital. So I don't scroll through the whole page. So, there's touch points during the day. But I do have a lot of newsletters from different newspapers, and you might get drawn into a story on a certain field. And so we have to get those readers more times during the week. And if you do that as a person, it helps you personally and professionally too. If you can come and to next employer and say, I have 30,000 followers.
What would you do differently if you were today at the beginning of your 20s, starting your career? What fields would you try to invest through your knowledge, and you think that are very important for the younger generation of foreign correspondents?
I think you have to. It's always good to find your niche. And I did that, to be honest, because I went to a special journalism school for economic and business journalism, which has paid off because general news is a lot harder. There's a lot more out there. I can only encourage you, and business is interesting, and it mixes with politics. It's all about money in the end. So I would say, find something that you do especially well and that you do care about. It doesn't make sense to go into a field that you just do because it's good, but no, you have to like it. But it's good to have your niche, and then you will have not the super expert, but some sort of expertise is always good, and it's your currency. So and another thing I would say, we are talking to foreign journalists, right? Keep always in mind who you're writing for. What I've seen over the years, it has changed. We're not doing the general reporting of all business news anymore. It's always more, we are always more asked to say, explain why this is important to the readers. We all know Axios, the phenomenon, right? That it's very good. So why is it important, right? Why does it matter? And why does it matter? And you have to ask yourself, like, why does it matter to your reader? I'd say, if you're from Greece, of course you're going to have, every time there's a somebody with a Greek origin or some Greek successful business person or a Hollywood person or politician, go for it. Those are the stories, but also general trends. I mean, we have done a lot about, now with Biden, we have, the whole alternative energy revolution, if it's going to come, or what he wants to invest. So we went and looked, hey, what does that mean for German companies? Germany it's a very present company. They employ 700,000 people, I think, in the US. So for them, it's important. Where can they get deals? What is it? What sector is your country strong in, which matters, or where something is moving? E-cars, for us, electric cars it's huge subject. And it's not just Tesla anymore, it's Volkswagen is going there. And so what are they doing here? What are other competitors doing? So kind of you try to mirror what is happening here, what could be interesting to your readers, to your country. There could be politics also. I mean, I've been a journalist also. I've been a correspondent in Italy. So I would say you could have like Berlusconi and Trump, those when you have very, very similar characters, or so always look for parallels and try to sell the story that way. And also what
sorry, go ahead.
Different, or
And I think that you would agree that, would you agree with the perception, at least I adopt this perception, I share this perception, for the fact that as a foreign correspondent working from abroad for the media of your country, sometimes tends to be a little bit some sort of, I wouldn't say biased or restrictive, but certainly you use the lens of your own origin, of your own background from the country that you're coming from, on the way that you report and you interpret the news. And this might be in two different levels. I would like to have your view on that. Like, one level, for example, is the fact that as a foreign journalist, at least in my case for Greek media, was that you had to report mainly, I would say exclusively, stories or topics that are affecting some sort the Greek audience, the audience that you are coming from. Do you feel, does this happen to you? Does this apply to you? And how does this make you feel? Do you feel that this sometimes is disappointing or frustrating? Because there are a lot of stories, but not all of the stories are important for the audience of your country, Germany or Greece in my case. Does this bother you sometimes?
I have to say, the pressure is not that much. It's more like we try to find those stories which actually matter also to the German. I mean, tariffs for us is a huge, Trump, and which are still here under Biden. But that's a big story, yes, of course. But I would say like America is big enough and important enough that people are still interested. I mean, there is no other country that people know so much about internal politics of the US, even, in Italy, in Greece, I'm sure. Yeah. Would you know the opposition leader in Denmark, or but everybody here knows, all parties and the most important people. I'm always surprised. So actually, I think you are in the lucky situation here that you can also write stories that don't only refer to your original country, but sometimes, it might be frustrating.
Maybe the parallelism between Germany and Greece is not the right one, because Germany is the leading power of the EU, Greece is not. So that means that the audience in Germany certainly needs and cares for a broader range of issues that affect, for example, the US-EU relationships, which is a core issue for the German policy and politics. But on the other side, I would like to ask you, have you ever felt that you need to report, or do you acknowledge the fact that some journalists may feel the need to report the news from an ethnocentric perspective, from as Germans, not first as Germans or as Italians or as Greeks, and then secondly as journalists?
Yes, but I think even more, the problem is often that you have to, or your editors might want you to serve certain stereotypes. I think, especially under the last government, it has been very hard. Sometimes, there was a Trump bashing mainstream all over. And I think you can be very critical of the former administration, but it was almost too much. I mean, I found myself often in the position to defend politics from Washington, even though I didn't like the way they were proposed or the way of behavior of the president. But there were some politics which, I mean, even the Democratic president right now has not abolished. So I think that was and I had that same thing in Italy. I don't see you anymore. Oh, there you are. So we had the same thing in Italy with Berlusconi. I've often, it's more, you have to try to, especially if you have these very strange or particular characters, sometimes, again, take a step back, see what they're actually doing, and then analyze what is good and what is bad. But look at the politics. Don't look at the subject. I found it often very annoying, especially comment, which usually came from Germany. They were even more, and it's so easy. I mean, it's easy. With Berlusconi, the stories sell, they click. Trump, we have that right now. And every time, if we have a tiny Trump story, it still clicks way better than any Biden story. So, but I think that's also our obligation as journalists to be critical, but on all sides, and not just go for the easy story. If you want to do bashing, then do it, but like list the facts and say why, and not just because of the way it was proposed. Yeah.
Do you think that do you agree, first of all, with the view that there is a broader mistrust to media from the global audience, that a majority, I wouldn't say the vast majority, but the majority of people may see the media as complicit to special interests or as corrupted sometimes, depending on the country? And do you think that the previous president, President Trump in the US, for example, established this belief and this image about the media that they are corrupted? And what is the role of journalists to defend their role, to defend their truth, and to educate the public about the real important reason why media are so crucial for our democracies?
Yes, I think the former president has a big responsibility in creating this distrust. And this is why it's even more important that if you write critical, that you have to have your facts right, and that you also give credit to things that are positive on the other side, because otherwise we have the same. I did not like the US media in everything they did during the last administration. Like,
I think that they were a little bit very radical,
very biased.
extremist, against specific angles of the Trump policy.
When you watch a soccer game, like a World Cup game, and you watch it, if Germany plays Greece and you watch it in Greek television and German television, it's going to be very different. And that's kind of how CNN and Fox was. I didn't feel anymore, and the great journalists, everything, but sometimes it was just too much comment and not enough objectivity. But that's my very...
Is there this culture of a lot of commentary in the German media? Because in Greece, it is a lot. It's like this is the main tactic of reporting the news through comments. Does this happen the same in Germany?
Officially not. Officially, we do divide very much. We have our commentary pages and we have the news pages. But of course, as we all know, the choice of news and the twist you give to a story can be a comment by itself. But we do try, and I think I can only speak for my own paper, we do try to keep things separately. Yeah.
But it's hard. I mean, that I think. Do you agree that this is the challenging part of journalism?
This is the challenging part. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And You were saying something before about that I interrupted you, that your thought about the way that the media were very radical against the President Trump, and we were discussing also about the established image of how the media uh, are presented as not reporting completely the truth, and that this was the case in the US, that they were very radical against President
It was
Trump.
very radical against, I mean, with Trump. And I think the problem is that sometimes they gave some reason for it. It's always, this, it's a little bit it's like, why can somebody like Donald Trump win? Because there are some things even in his programs that he was right on, China, whatever, at least not right, but those which actually speak to both parties. And that it was the same sometimes, the media did make mistakes. The media, they were biased on a lot of things. So they made themselves easy to attack. But it's not just on that part. It's also on the other part. I mean, Fox is biased. So I just think we should all try to be less of the one or the other. That is the most important part. But I also think, I mean, because there was so much mistrust, in a lot of people did go back to traditional and like well-known names, because whether it's Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, yes, of course they were critical, but because they were looking for facts, they were looking for they didn't trust any blog anymore. So it's also good for it has been good for some time.
How do you foresee that?
There is, sorry, just to
Sorry,
say one thing, and of course the ownership matters.
absolutely.
Who owns a newspaper, and whether it's a state. I'm very glad that our newspaper group belongs to one very rich person who sits in Stuttgart and close to the Black Forest, and he doesn't have any other interest. It's only media. So we are, at least the print journalism in Germany is in the lucky position. We only have pure media players. So we are not owned by Siemens. I'm saying, like,
and now you open the other big discussion that has been mostly in European countries and also here in the US. But I think here in the US, a little bit there is more clear check and balances compared to other countries. I think the same would be the status in Germany. Like in Greece, for example, from my experience, I can say that the owners of media organizations are playing games with the government. It's different government because they have their own interest to get either advertisement from the state or to get some big, projects funded from the state. This is the major problem, that there is no conflict of interest policy, at least for my country. I don't know, is this the case in Germany? I doubt. I think that in Germany things are much more strict, especially in Germany.
But it's not true. I mean, this is for the print newspapers and magazines. It's not the same for the state broadcasting. So we do have state broadcasting, and you can ask around in Germany. A lot of people think they're not objective, and they might be right sometimes. Yeah.
What do you think that the most, I would say, the thing that you see as the riskiest part of the future of journalism right now? Yeah. What are you most worried about? What are you hopeful? And I have a third question, but I want to hear your answer on this too.
Yeah, I'm worried. Well, the most important thing is that we have to earn money, right? So, and that's the most important part. And I think, but I'm also hopeful, because especially big newspapers like the FT, like New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, they've all shown that you are able not to give everything for free and to go to the subscription model. I mean, we're doing that with Handelsblatt too now. Like, advertising used to be 50%, right, of the revenue. It's not anymore. And the more we can finance ourselves by our readers, the more objective we can be. We don't depend on the advertising. That's always a good thing. You don't depend on state subsidies. And we've done the big mistake 20 years ago to give everything free in the internet news. And there again, it's general news. It will be hard to have that paid for unless you have your special angle, your very particular name, maybe. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough competition. But I think there's hope because we see these companies, the big news organizations here, who are actually able to make money with journalism, selling articles. So that is my hope. Yeah, the worry is that that newspapers don't have enough money to pay journalists to do their job well. And we still have a big foreign correspondence network at our paper, and we know we are a big exception with this. But our readers value that a lot. But I've seen it also in Italy. I've seen, they have been cutting foreign journalists, a lot of newspapers. That's the first thing they cut, right? So it's not good, but you have to show that it's an asset. And yeah. So my big hope is that people will come back. Now they're willing to pay for Netflix, so maybe they might also be willing to, pay for good news.
One very quick question, follow up on what you just said. Do you think that the future of media may rely on non-profit models instead of for-profit models that have been so far?
Yeah. Well, it is an interesting model. I'd rather have people willing to pay for their money. But if it's a non-profit model with really no second interest there, because you always have to see. I don't know how much I can take. The Washington Post is one that comes to mind. It's not non-profit, but it's a very rich person who doesn't need a profit from that organization. And is doing a good job, but I don't know. Do I want to read about Amazon on that paper? Do I want to read about Jeff Bezos in that paper? I'd rather go to another one, right? So in general, non-profit model is interesting. Yeah, it just you have to have your checks and balances, that it's really not some hidden agenda behind it. So,
If you are about to say a few advices very briefly to the young generation who may want to, like a young journalist from Germany who just graduated from journalism school and wants to move to the US. What, from your experience as a foreign correspondent in Italy, in the US, what this person needs to have as qualifications and how this person needs to be prepared for the challenges he or she will face? And the second question is, do you think that doing journalism, executing journalism requires academic background, requires academic level studies? Because there are some people saying, okay, you don't need to study journalism, you just need to practice. I don't adopt this approach, but this comes more and more in the surface of the discussion, I think.
I actually think I had some good mentors who never went to university. So, and I think you need curiosity, and you can learn how to write an article. We all know it's like craft. So and if you need some talent for it, but it's not God-given. You can all learn it. I think the most important thing is curiosity, and you have to want to do that job, because it's not going to make you super rich unless like very few cases. But I still think it's one of the best professions that you can choose.
And what advice would you give to the German journalist?
Yeah,
coming here to the US?
Look for the curious stories. Go out there and speak to the people. It's been hard the last year. I hated it, not to be able to actually get the real feeling and see people only on Zoom. It's not the same. So I can't wait to get back to normal and travel again and see exactly what I'm reporting about. And but be out there and find your niche. I think it's important to find your niche, and it's going to be easier.
Katharina, I wanted to thank you for dedicating some of your time to speak to us today. We will share this interview with the foreign correspondence community. Your input and the takeaways from this interview and this discussion with you, I think they have been very useful, and they will remain useful for our viewers. I would like to hear if you have any message you would like to send to the foreign correspondence community, to our audience, anything you would like to share before we conclude.
No, I think the most important things I've said, that I still think it's a wonderful profession that we're all in, and
I want your promise that next time we will have a conversation about the Eurozone crisis, the European financial crisis, which is something that I didn't have the time to ask. I covered the Eurozone crisis from the Greek perspective in the Washington, D.C.
I covered it from the Italian perspective, so it was very
exactly. We have to arrange a new conversation just about that.
Definitely. Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.